Welcome back, everyone. We're doing something new this time. Instead of just a general behind-the-scenes video, I thought I'm gonna do a production vlog to really show you the day-to-day operations while on a project and like all the things that need to be done from start to finish. So for this one, we're gonna do the process on a TV movie. This one's called Kentucky Roses. It's my 9th Hallmark movie. And these movies are kind of the smallest or most condensed things that I work on. They have the shortest schedule, no live recording, no surround mix pass or anything like that. They're just very quick turnaround. And as such, they're also the most straightforward kind of project that I work on. Also, a small disclaimer, I will be filming outdoors a little bit as well. I try not to specifically film people in public, but sometimes, you know, if you're in a crowded place, it's unavoidable. And I also know that, especially in LA, we're all a bit fatigued by the influencers and you're constantly in someone's video in the background. I'll do my best to blur out faces, license plates and all that, but if you see yourself in any of these videos and you're like, I don't want to be in this, you let me know and I'll try and cut that out. Or I think YouTube now also has a feature where you can blur out faces after the fact. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the initial setup, like how does this all get started? So right now it's October 2025. This project might bleed over into 2026. It's not coming out until May around the Kentucky Derby because that's what the movie's about. So we do have quite a bit of time. They haven't shot the film yet. The post supervisor just called me yesterday and basically said, are you available? This is the schedule. And then it's kind of the same deal as it always is like this. These phone calls are usually pretty short because it's really just about, do you want the gig or not? So those phone calls are usually just 5 minutes to just know if I'm available. The schedules on these are often very, very condensed. What often happens is we only have between 2 and 4 weeks. Now, I usually try to push for a minimum of 3 weeks on these, especially if the movie doesn't come out for a while, then, you know, maybe we can take an extra week or so, because I've done one of these in 2 weeks and that's tricky because I also don't know in advance how much music is going to be in the film. Sometimes it's just 30 to 40 minutes because there's a lot of songs in it, and then sometimes it's like over 60 minutes, which is, yeah, sure, it's doable in 2 weeks, but I'm not going to do my best work in 2 weeks. So I usually say, can we do a minimum of 3 weeks, ideally 4, to get this done. So on this one, from what I'm gathering, I will have roughly 3 weeks to deliver the score. But so this is pretty common for TV productions that the turnaround is just very fast. Thankfully, we do get locked picture on these, otherwise it wouldn't really be workable on these schedules to not have locked picture. But so again, on this one, we have a little bit more wiggle room because it's October. They're gonna shoot now, essentially. They're going to the location in Kentucky. From the first schedule that I got, it said that I'm getting the locked picture basically right before Christmas, but we'll see if they truly stick to that because we have so much extra time if the movie doesn't come out until early May. So the next thing that's gonna happen, probably today or tomorrow, is they're gonna send me the contract. Same contract as on all the other movies. I'll send my first invoice as well, because as per usual, you get paid 50% up front and then 50% upon delivery. And then I'll probably just go to a coffee shop or a park to read the script. But so yeah, that's all that's gonna happen for now, because they're off shooting and then they're editing, so there's nothing else for me to do other than read the script and do the paperwork that needs to be done, and then just wait until they call again or write an email and say, okay, we're ready. They did end up sending me the script shortly after I signed the contract. It's over 100 pages long, so I went to one of my favorite local coffee shops and sat down for a while to read all the way through it. All right, it's now December, and I was just added to Frame.io, which is the platform that the executives are using. It's similar to Dropbox, basically, where everyone can review the material. What I like about Frame.io is just how it streamlines uploading picture, and then everyone can leave comments exactly at the time code and everything. It's really handy. And I also like that I get to see everyone else's work, especially when I'm brought on so early. I can see what every other department has been doing and just get more inspiration, basically. But so the reason they added me is because they have a cut. They don't have the final locked cut, but they have a cut for me to watch. It's almost Christmas, and technically I was supposed to get the locked cut before Christmas, but it seems like, they'd rather still work a little longer on it. Because of that delay, I'm not technically gonna start until January on this, which I kind of like, because that means I don't have to work over Christmas and I can just kind of watch the latest cut and get some ideas, right? But I don't have to work through the holidays. This also is going to move the deadline, so I'm going to get a new schedule fairly soon that will move the deadline to early February. I have already watched the movie. It's a straight up romance and not so much comedy, which I prefer over rom-coms personally. And the funny thing is, it's temped with my music entirely. When they're editing, they ask for previous material from previous Hallmark movies that I can send, so the editors can kind of temp the movie with it if they want. Very often they don't do that, but in this case they actually did. So that already gives me a pretty good idea of what we're going for. Something else that I was briefed on already is that they would like bluegrass mixed with classical Americana, kind of Copeland style, Randy Newman. They want something that sounds traditional, but not like modern country or anything. They want it to sound a bit more timeless. So when I heard what they tempt the movie with, I decided I'm gonna hire Connor Cook, who I've worked with before. I figured if that's the style we go for, bluegrass and like indie vocals and stuff like that, Connor is the perfect person to do that because she plays all these instruments. That's kind of her background. She also does these indie vocals really well. So I'm gonna reach out to Connor and see if she's available to work with me on this. Technically, there's not a ton of score in it, but I would still love to have her for creative reasons. And also because, 3 weeks is still a tight turnaround. I haven't made the cue sheet yet because I don't have the locked picture yet, but it seems like there's gonna be about 45 minutes of music in it. So if Connor can take over 10 minutes of that, that's actually gonna make my life a lot easier. But either way, nothing else is happening now. Basically, everyone is leaving for the holidays now, so there's not gonna be any movement on this other than me sitting down and potentially coming up with some ideas over the holidays. It is just past Christmas now, and I did end up thinking of some themes. Now, these are just really rough drafts of what I'm going to do in the film. They're not fully orchestrated or anything. I just wrote them into either piano track or into like an ensemble patch. Now, normally on a different production, I would make these full mock-ups and flesh these out and then present them to the production for approval, but we don't really do that on these schedules. So these are really just for me, which is why it's fine that they're just really rudimentary ideas. So this is just kind of the blueprint or the rough material that I will then refine and work to picture. So this is not going to be presented to the actual executives. But so here's the modern love theme that I wrote. So this is going to be the theme that I'm going to use for the modern couple. And then I also wrote a more traditional sounding flashback love theme. This is for the couple that appears in the flashback sequences from the 30s. As you can see, very rough mock-up, but just for me. The clarinet is actually something the main executive asked for, so they really wanted this theme to be played by a clarinet. But other than that, this is just, the basic idea, the melody, the harmonies, and the basic arrangement of it. Then I also have a little theme for the father and son, or rather it's going to appear mostly with the mother and son, I think. So this is kind of what's going to appear in those scenes. Right, again, just in an ensemble patch, not yet fully arranged, but just to have the idea. Then I also did a little thing for just a little piano arrangement for the more upbeat scenes. Like this is just a very cute, sweet little thing that I'll probably arrange with mandolin and some other, more folksy instruments. But for now, this is just the piano draft of that idea. Right, just a very basic thing. And then I also looked into the arrangements from different more classical Americana pieces and essentially came up with some of these open harmonies that are being used. So this is just like a harmonic progression that I can use for some of the more open field or some of the more epic moments. But this is also, again, not arranged at all. I think this is going to be arranged with brass later and strings, but we'll see where I'm going to use it. And so forth. You see the general idea, like it's not just these open harmonies, but also it has this kind of noble, old-timey feel to it, which is what we're going to go for in a lot of the more traditional sequences of the film, or rather where they talk about tradition and what it means and all those things. So that's what this is going to be for. We'll see where I'll actually use this. But so these are just the general ideas that I came up with after watching the first cut that I saw. I might come up with other things as well as I go, obviously, in the film, and Connor is going to come up with her stuff. So there's going to be more material than this in the film, but this is going to be the foundation that we'll use for probably like 80% of the film. All right. Happy New Year. We made it into 2026. It's January now, and I got my new post schedule. As I mentioned earlier, we have moved my deadline since the delivery of the locked picture was late, so I no longer have to deliver at the original deadline. I've also, now that we have locked picture, I've given them my playout details. They usually ask me what I want, and so I tend to tell them very plain specs, just because I have to work in Cubase and in Pro Tools, and so I like to take very, very common formats that both software can read, you know, using older-ish codecs, like not the newest of the newest, just because I don't know if my version of Pro Tools and my current version of Cubase can read the latest of the latest. And then I usually prefer to have the music on a separate stereo track and the dialogue and sound effects on a separate stereo track. Sometimes they like to deliver it panned, so you will just get one stereo track, and then on one side they have the dialogue and sound effects, and then on the other side they have the music, but then each of them is in mono. And I personally don't love that because it makes it harder to mix the premixes. It makes it harder to, when I deliver my music against the dialogue and the sound effects, it makes it very difficult to mix it sometimes because you don't have the full stereo image, but the music is going to be in stereo. So it gives kind of a wrong impression very often. So I don't like it when it's delivered like that. Basically, later today, we're going to have a setup call with the executives and with the director and the producers to make sure that we're all on the same page creatively. Now, most interactions on Hallmark movies happen with the producers and the studio executives, and less with the director, so it's kind of up to them how involved the director is going to be. On TV shows, it's usually the showrunner that you would be interfacing with. On this movie, we're also not going to have a spotting session. Normally, on a movie, you go through every single scene and, you know, they tell you where they want music and what kind of music and where the in and out points are, and you kind of have that discussion. We have skipped that on a bunch of productions at this point, just because it's my 9th movie with them, so I kind of know what they want and where the music needs to go. Plus, it's already temped really well. We don't really need a full spotting session. We can just go over spots that are particularly important, or spots that they think are not spotted very well, or things that they just want to draw specific attention to. So we don't really have to go through the entire film. But there are also examples where I haven't had spotting sessions and it wasn't great. There were 1 or 2 times where I got a movie that was essentially not temped at all, and they just kind of left it entirely to me where the music goes, and it was tonally not entirely clear what kind of music, and I don't love that when no thought has gone into the music and then they're like, you figure it out, and I'm just kind of completely left alone. So that can also go south very quickly, not having a spotting session, but on this movie, it's really not necessary for all of us to sit here for 4 hours talking about every single scene. It's also that Hallmark is a really well-oiled machine. They produce a ton of movies and TV shows every year, and they do this so much on tight schedules that the executives know exactly how to communicate to get the right results very quickly. So they're just incredible at getting really down to the point of what they want, because they know we don't have time, right? So they're like, we need to figure out a way to communicate very precisely what we want, and they're really, really good at it. So I'm not worried about this. Personally, I prep before the meeting so I can ask questions about specific scenes or specific stylistic means. Now, what's going to happen after that is our classic workflow on these types of movies, where the movie is divided into 9 acts that get shorter with each act, because each act is basically the part in between commercial breaks. So the first act is the longest, and then consecutively they're getting shorter and shorter to have more commercial breaks. So we're gonna have 9 acts, and the way they like to work is to write a full act before I deliver. So I'm not delivering individual cues, I'm delivering the full first 18 minutes or however long the first act is. And then I upload that to Frame.io, and then they can review the whole act in one go while I already move on to the next act. And the way they like it is that I basically work my way through the entire movie first before we do a revision pass. But so they will already leave notes on the acts that I've uploaded, so I will already know kind of what not to do or where the problem areas are. Normally when I work on a movie and I have a longer schedule, I like to work more with themes. So I like to do scenes that are kind of connected and use the same thematic material. But so not my choice in these movies. They just really like it if we work in big chunks. And so you just do all the cues in order. And it kind of makes sense for these schedules and for how condensed everything is. So I understand why they want it this way. Sometimes on these movies we also have a music editor. We don't have one this time, so I will be in charge of creating the playouts and making any sort of music edits, making the final delivery in Pro Tools. So I'll show that when that happens. What I will also do today after our meeting is I'm gonna send an NDA to Connor and a contract to Connor because she's coming back from Christmas vacation in, I think, 2 or 3 days, so then I can get her started as well. And then we're good to go. We're good to start writing to picture. All right, time for the actual production to start. Now that all the prep work is done, I'm gonna start making the cue sheet, or our progress sheet. It's not the sheet that is gonna get registered. We'll do that at the end. But like a progress kind of sheet where I can see all the cues and assign cues to Connor, see exactly how much music needs to be done, and then how much I need to do per day. We have a total of 21 days before this needs to be delivered, so pretty much exactly 3 weeks. Today, the first half of the day is gonna kind of be spent on the cue sheet and kind of getting our ducks in a row in terms of who's doing what and how quickly do we need to do things. I'm also gonna, while I do the cue sheet, I'm gonna explain to you exactly how I do the math. I don't think I will work through the 21 days. I will probably take a day or 2 off in between just to recharge, but also, you know, there's gonna be events and meetings and stuff that's gonna interrupt my days, so I'm gonna count that in as well. But also, I need to count in, obviously, not just the first writing pass, but also at least a day or 2 for revisions, depending on how many there are. We can adjust that as we go, depending on, you know, what the executives say once I delivered some music. And then the other thing is also, we obviously need time to print stems. I need time to make the final Pro Tools delivery and everything, double check all the files, double check the stems against the stereo ref and all these things. So I like to plan in a day for that as well, because that's just kind of how long it's going to take to prepare all the files and create the final delivery. So whatever the deadline is, I'm kind of doing minus 3 days just to kind of have time for all the stuff that needs to happen in between the first delivery and the final delivery. First things first, I usually have a cup of coffee in the morning and a light breakfast. This is also when I check my stock portfolio to see if I can get anything on sale. Sometimes I will throw in a workout or read a little bit, but I prefer to do those things in the evening. At the beginning of a project, I'll also stock up on fruit to snack on, and I will either have groceries delivered in bulk so I can prepare meals throughout the project, or I will sign up for something like HelloFresh or Blue Apron so I don't have to actually plan my meals ahead of time. So the first thing that needs to get done is the progress sheet. I start with my empty template. I have the film and the audio tracks loaded into Pro Tools, and I just basically go through where the music cues are and just write that down. I also add a couple of cues where I know they will probably want some music or where I think there should be some music. Very important to not plan to write into the acts, so the out points of the different acts need to be very exact, because we cannot play music into the commercial breaks. I'm also noting down the songs for the music supervisor. Some of these are multiple songs. I just mark down the spots so I know that I don't have to write score in these spots. I'm assigning cues to Connor as well, where I think that she might be a good fit for a cue, especially with her specific style, or where something had already been temped with one of her cues. And so as I'm doing this, you can see at the bottom of the sheet in a second how the score is adding up and also how our assigned cues are adding up. And so now I can basically take the date of the delivery deadline minus 3 days just for, you know, revisions and stem printing and all those things, preparing the delivery. So minus 3 days, that will give me the exact amount of days I have. And then I will divide the amount of minutes that I have to write by the amount of days. And ideally, that'll come out at 2 minutes or less. In this case, we have no time reserved for recording and no separate mix, so we don't need to plan in time for that. We mix as we go in stereo. This is also how I can figure out the pay per minute at this point. In this case, the pay per minute was a bit higher than usual because there's less score than usual, because there's a lot of songs and source music in this film. Now, the reason I plan for 2 minutes a day is because it's comfortable to do while also maintaining the quality I want to deliver. Some days I might do more, but I just don't outright plan for more. I've learned over the years not to plan for the maximum amount. that I can do, because first of all, it just leads to burnout, but also you're not leaving any wiggle room for anything. What if I get sick for a day? What if I have meetings? What if I have a pitch come up? What if they add more music? What if they, add a cue here and there? What if there are more revisions or rewrites than anticipated? Anything that disrupts your day now puts you into trouble if you planned to write the maximum amount of music. If you already planned for 5+ minutes of music and 16-hour days and no days off, then it's almost impossible to catch up. One missed day or even just a half day is a major inconvenience, and then even the slightest disruption becomes so irritating and stressful. If at my rate I miss a day, all I have to do is write 3 minutes for 2 days and I'm all caught up. I can easily do that if my initial plan considers a day or two off and also just considers an 8-hour workday. So if I have to throw in a 12-hour day or a 16-hour day to catch up, I can simply do that. Or I can cut into my off days by working a few hours. But always have a buffer, because life happens. Worst case scenario, you have some extra time at the end. The alternative is much worse. Once I was done with the sheet, I started working on one-on-one. Then I prepared myself some lunch, and after that, I spent the afternoon finishing one-on-one, which is a longer cue, and then also got one-on-two done. All right, day 2. I did get one-on-one and one-on-two done yesterday, so that's a good thing. I saw that Connor already got one-on-3 done. For me today, one-on-4, one-on-5, and one-on-6 are planned. And then tomorrow would be the rest of Act 1. So taking 3 days for the first act is kind of normal because it's the longest act. And then as we get further to the end of the movie, when the acts get shorter, we can usually do 1 or 2 acts in one go and really don't have to worry about it anymore. I also did have a note for Connor, so I'm going to give her that so that she can address that, and also moving forward with her cues can address that. Very simple stuff like balancing things, and I wanted her to add a bass to her piece. But like very simple, small changes just so that it goes better with my music as well. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to get done today, hopefully. All right, day 3. Today I want to get the remaining cues from Act 1 done. So today it's 1M7 and 1M8, which is the last thing I need to do. Connor is finishing 1M9 and also addressing some minor notes I had on her cues. But so it's very important to me to send off Act 1 today because, as I've said before, it's the longest act and it's the first time they're going to hear the music. Usually when I work on a longer schedule, I would first write the themes, do full mock-ups, send them off, and then first get feedback on the themes before I even start writing to picture. We don't have the time for that on a schedule like this. And so this is going to be the first time they hear the music, and it's very important to get feedback at this stage because it'll influence how we'll do the other acts. You know, maybe there's specific thematic material that they don't like, or maybe there's specific instruments they don't like, or, you know, maybe the sound is all wrong. Who knows? I don't think it is, but this will be the first time that they get a say on what we're doing. And so I want to be really sure that, you know, we're moving in the right direction. So yeah, this is important that we're getting this out today. If something is wrong, we can course correct immediately on Act 2, 3, and, you know, all the way down to 9. And then another thing I'm going to have to do is the song edit. Since we don't have a music editor on this, I'm doing that. I'm going to make sure I have all the WAV files, actually. I should do that first so I can reach out to the music supervisor if I'm missing something, because the songs obviously need to get approved as well. And then they need to, you know, get licensed, and like the music supervisor has to do her thing. So it's important that I don't just deliver and premix the score, but I also need to edit the songs into the film and deliver the song and other song options so that they can approve those as well in one go. And then I'll also be the one to, in the end, deliver the songs. So this is kind of an extra job that normally a music editor would do. But again, since we don't have one on this movie, I'm the one doing that. Anyway, let's get to work. As you can see here, once all the cues for an act are done, I import them lined up to picture at the correct time code and create a premix with the dialogue. Then I export the video file with the new audio, upload it to Frame.io, and let the team know it's ready for review. After everything was sent off, I got ready for an evening event. It's award season, and as a voting member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, I'm currently attending a lot of screenings and special evening events.
Swinging along, minding my business, when suddenly out of the blue, just like a present from heaven, beautiful, wonderful you. The clouds disappeared and the birds started singing a beautifully wonderful tune, for no other song could be worthy of beautiful, wonderful you. Now who could have thought this could happen? Who would have ever believed? Could it be true that someone like you could fall for somebody like me? I'll swing along, happy as ever, no longer lonely or blue, for I have been kissed by an angel, beautiful, wonderful you.
This evening was hosted by James Cameron and Simon Franklin at a jazz club owned by Herb Alpert, where they talked about the music for the latest Avatar movie and performed pieces from the soundtrack Life to Picture.
Now who could have thought this could happen? Who would have ever believed? Could it be true that someone like you could fall for somebody like me? Now I'll swing along, happy happy as ever, no longer lonely or blue. For I have been kissed by an angel, beautiful, wonderful, marvelous, lovable, beautiful, wonderful you.
Once the event was over, I grabbed dinner with a composer friend. She suggested a place she called the diner with all the cars. I didn't really know what that meant, but it turned out to be an incredibly accurate description of the place. We made it to day 4. Now today I want to get all of my cues from Act 2 done. That's because there's a longer bar scene in that act that I don't need to score. That's going to be 100% source music, so the music supervisor will select some pieces for licensing here, and Connor takes over 2M12, while I do 2M10, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Sounds like a lot, but they're all just very short cues, so it should not take a really long time to do these. So yeah, this should actually be an act that we can get done in one day. Then I'll make the playout at the end and upload it, and hopefully tomorrow we will already have notes, feedback on Act 1, because right now we're of course working with Act 2 without having had any notes yet, but they're usually very quick. So hopefully by the time I'm uploading this act, we will around that time get feedback on the first act. It is day 5 of Kentucky Roses, and Act 1 feedback came in. I always appreciate how quick the Hallmark executives are with this because they know that time is of the essence and how important the feedback of Act 1 is specifically to confirm whether the direction is good. So the good news is there's nothing tragic in the notes. There's a couple of things where they're like, let it ring out longer, which is usually preferred on TV in general for the music editor. It's something I learned on Gallivant many, many years ago under Chris Leonard's and his music editor, that it's often better to let a cue ring out longer than it says on the cue sheet so that the music editor can lengthen and shorten it to exactly where the executives want it to end. In this case, I'm just gonna have to make a couple cues longer and just let them ring out. Some of the start points they also want changed very slightly by a few seconds, which is easy enough to change. There's one small music correction and then also one small rewrite for me, but it's a very short cue, so that shouldn't be a huge issue. But so as I said earlier, we don't do revisions right away. As per instructions from Hallmark, they preferred if we first get through the whole thing and then do a revision pass. So the goal for today is to get Act 3 out. Connor has 3M17 covered, and I'll do 3M18, 19, and 20. And then we have a pretty good head start on this movie, I think. Starting day 6 with very good news. All of Act 2's score is approved, so no revisions on that. They just wanted more song options for the bar scene, so I'll wait for the music supervisor to send me some alt versions to edit in. But so we've now delivered a little over 30 minutes of the film. And given that we have almost no revisions, I've decided to take the day off. It's the weekend anyway, and you know, I've worked 5 days straight plus the prep day, so day 6 is gonna be my off day. So I'll be doing some chores and then I'll go outside and enjoy the sunshine. Anyway, back to work tomorrow. Joke's on me. Shortly after I said that, I got a pitch request in, so I actually had to prepare a reel and write a short 1-minute piece on spec. That's one of the realities of this profession. While you're on a project, you also already need to secure the next project. It's like a never-ending stream of job applications. But after I got all my miscellaneous tasks done, I did go down to Marina Del Rey in the evening to unwind. It's my favorite place to get some fresh ocean air and sunshine after a long workday. The marina was only finished in 1965 and is the largest man-made harbor for small boats in North America. It fits about 5,000 of them. I specifically like it because it's a very laid-back, relaxing neighborhood with lots of recreational spaces that tourists generally don't come to, and it's also just very pretty.